Today we're going to go over question number 4 from the May 2022 Paper 2 exam. This question is actually really good and it's a bit tricky, so let's dive right in. A sector of a circle center 0 and radius 4.5 meters is shown in the following diagram. Find angle AOB. Remember that when you use 3 letters to name an angle, the vertex is the letter in the center. So right here, when it says angle AOB, you start with A, you go to O, and you end in B. Therefore, the vertex is going to be this entire thing. So right now, they're asking you to find the entire angle AOB. So how do we go about doing that? One of the relationships that you can establish right away is the fact that you see that there are 2 right triangles. I'm going to work with this right triangle right here on the left. This is 90 degrees indicated by this box. So this is 90 degrees. And that means that I can go ahead and find theta, which is half of the entire angle that we want to find, by using SOH-CAH-TOA. If you remember the trigonometric ratio, sine, cosine, tangent, they can only be used on right triangles. If you do not have a right triangle, then you cannot be using SOH-CAH-TOA. So here, the way you use SOH-CAH-TOA is that you start with the angle. According to this angle, this side right here is opposite. This is the hypotenuse of this right triangle because it's opposite the 90-degree angle, and that leaves the 4 to be adjacent. If you have a hard time with triangles, one of the things that you can do is really quickly go ahead and redraw this so that you can better see it. So the 90-degree angle is right there. This is 4, 4.5 is the hypotenuse. And again, theta is the angle that you're trying to find right there. So from here, you can clearly see that this is going to be opposite. This is your hypotenuse. This is adjacent. So how do you know which trig ratio to use, sine, cosine, or tangent? Well, I'm going to go based off of the information that I have and the information that I want. I want the measurement of the angle, and the information I have is the adjacent side and the hypotenuse. So if you look over at SOH-CAH-TOA, when we wrote it out, we want to find adjacent and hypotenuse. That means that I am going to find cosine. So I'm going to set up the problem as the cosine of theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So that means 4 over 4.5. Now, you have to make sure that your calculator is set to degree mode. And in this case, because I'm trying to figure out the measurement of the angle, I'm going to have to find what's called the arc cosine. That means that I want to find basically the opposite in the calculator, the inverse. So when we head on over to the calculator, one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you are in degree mode. When you take your test for the applications and interpretation course, you're allowed to use your calculator for both paper 1 and paper 2. But you have to make sure that you are in degree mode. So in this case, I went ahead and I changed it. Now I can go back and I want to find the arc cosine, so second cosine of 4 divided by 4.5. And that is going to give me 27.266. So when you write down your answer, you want to make sure that you write down at least 3 or 4 decimal places, ... and then round to 3 significant figures. So this means that theta, or the angle, is going to be 27.266 ... But remember that that is only going to give me half of the entire angle that I want. I want the entire thing, so I'm going to have to multiply that by 2. So I'm going to show how I'm going to multiply 27.266 ... times 2, and that is going to give me the measurement of angle AOB, which is exactly what I'm looking for. In the calculator, don't clear the value. Leave it like that. You do not want to round in the middle of your calculations. Even though you might even write down 27.3, you will leave the entire value in the calculator, and then you're going to multiply it by 2. That way you avoid round off error. So in this case, I'm going to write 54.532 ... and that means that this angle is approximately 54.5 degrees. So the measurement here is 54.5 degrees. Also remember that this is a paper 2 question, which means that you're going to write it on your own answer document. So right now it looks a little cluttered, a little messy because I'm doing it right on the test paper. You would not be doing this right on the test paper. You would actually have just nice clean sheets of paper that you're going to go ahead and show all your work as neatly as possible. So in this case, we figured out that the angle of AOB is 54.5 degrees. Right there, by getting that answer of 54.5 degrees, you were able to get 3 out of the 8 points. Notice that this is an 8-point question and they haven't really told you the breakdown of it, but because I can see the mark scheme, I know that for part 1, they're giving you 3 points. They're giving you points for setting up correctly, showing that you're doing the arc cosine, obviously for the correct answer, 27.266, and then for multiplying by 2 so that you actually figure out the answer for angle AOB. Okay, so now we're going to go on to part 2 where it says to find the area of the shaded segment. So the shaded segment is just this little piece right here. How are we going to find that answer? One of the things that you have to remember is that they're showing you a sector of a circle. A sector is basically a pizza slice. Think about it that way. So in this case, I'm going to find the entire area of the entire pizza slice or the sector, which is going to include the shaded part they want. Then I'm going to have to find the area of this triangle right here, and I'm going to subtract the area of the sector minus the area of that triangle. Therefore, I'll be only left with the shaded area, which is the part that I've done right now in red. When you're going to tackle a problem, especially in geometry, you want to be able to write down your thought process so the person who's grading your paper can understand what you're trying to do. So in this case, for example, I would make sure that I write down that I want to take the area of the sector minus the area of the triangle. And this way, the person who's grading the paper can tell that I'm trying to figure out that area of the sector, and then I'm going to go for the area of the triangle. So to figure out the area of the sector, if you don't remember the formula, and even if you do, I would totally recommend that you check on the formula packet since you do have access to it for both sittings in the paper so that you don't make a mistake. So here's the formula packet. Remember, the formula packet is organized by topics. So in this case, topic 3 is geometry and trigonometry. So you want to head on over to topic 3 and you want to see where they possibly have the area of a sector. And in this case, it's going to be the very last 2 formulas, length of an arc and area of a sector. So here you see that the area of the sector is theta, which is the angle that you want, out of 360 times pi r squared, which is the area of the entire circle. On the exam, you don't really get points for just copying down a formula, but if it helps you, then you can go ahead and write it down. That way you are ready to just substitute. In this case, the angle, remember that we found, is 54.5 divided by 360 times pi radius squared. Be careful not to use 4 as the radius. You have to remember that this is part of an entire circle. If you were to complete this circle, I know that's a terrible looking circle, but that's the idea. This is the center of the circle. So right here, the 4.5 is the radius of the circle, not the 4. All of this is going to go straight into your calculator. Once again, in the calculator, we still have stored the entire answer. So I'm going to take that entire answer and I'm going to divide it by 360 times pi times the radius, 4.5 squared, okay? And this way, I am going to avoid round off error. So the answer is going to be 9.6366 ... and then round to 3 significant figures, 9.64. So remember that we want to take the area of the sector minus the area of the triangle. So one of the things that we have to do now is figure out the area of this triangle. There are multiple ways for you to find the area of the triangle. One of the things that you can do is find the area of basically one of these right triangles and then multiply it by 2. But in this case, you're still going to have to figure out the missing length of the base because you don't have it. So that is something that you can do either with SOH-CAH-TOA, you can do it with the Pythagorean theorem. Let's go ahead and do it with the Pythagorean theorem. I think that a lot of kids find that to be pretty easy. So here I'm going to say that 4 squared plus x squared is equal to c squared, which is 4.5 squared. Let's go ahead and solve. We get 16 plus x squared is equal to 20.25. Subtract x squared is equal to 4.25. And then let's go ahead and take the square root of 4.25, which is about 2.06155. So right now I found this half. I can multiply the 2.06155 times 2, and that'll give me the entire base of this triangle. And then the height of the entire triangle is 4. So that is something that I can do, because remember, this is going to be an isosceles triangle. These are radii from the same circle, so this part's also 4.5. Let's go ahead and do that. I think it's going to be an easy way for us to get this answer. Remember, you have this stored already in the calculator, so go ahead and just multiply by 2. You get 4.1231. I took the time to go ahead and redraw it because that way you're able to see it better. And that means that the area of this triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. So that gives me an area of, and remember, in the calculator, you have the entire value stored and you want to use it. So go ahead and bring it down and you have 8.246. So now I have finished finding the area of the triangle. I have the area of the sector, and now I can figure out the area of the shaded region. So here they want the area of the shaded segment, which is going to equal 9.64 minus 8.246. And when I'm working in the calculator, I like to have as exact of an answer as possible. So I found my 9.6366, I press enter, minus my previous answer of 8.246, and that means 1.39 to 3 significant figures. It's going to be the area of the shaded segment. So this is 1.39, and it's in meters, so I'm going to write this down as square meters, and that's going to be my final answer. So where are they going to give you points in this problem? They're giving you points for finding the area of a triangle. That's going to give you about 2 points right there. 1 for the setup and 2 for actually finding the area. Then you're going to get 2 points for finding the area of the sector by using the formula and then finding the correct area, the 9.64. And then finally, for subtracting your 2 values, you're going to end up with your final point. So that is how you ended up with 8 points out of this one question. A little side note, just to kind of practice how to find the area of a triangle that is not a right triangle from the very beginning. Here we have this, and this is important for you to know actually, because even though right now we were able to use the right triangle to figure out areas 1/2 base times height, there are situations on the exam where you're going to basically have to use the other area formula, and that's the one that uses sine. So in the formula packet, the area of the triangle they give you with sine rule and cosine rule is 1/2 AB sine of C. So this would have been another option. Remember that we already found this entire angle to be 54.5 degrees right here. And so the way it works to find the area is that you're going to do 1/2 A and B in this way of finding area are the 2 sides that make up the included angle. So think of it as side, angle, side, which in this case, both of these are going to be 4.5. And then it's going to be times the sine of the angle we just found, 54.5. So this is going to go into our calculator. This is figuring out the area of this triangle all at once instead of us having to do Pythagorean theorem to find the missing length so that we can multiply by 2 to find the entire base. But again, there's so many ways for you to get that answer. It doesn't really matter as long as you show your work and you end up with the correct answer at the end. So just to finish off the problem, it'll be 0.5 times 4.5 times 4.5 times the sine of 54.5. And again, that is a number that I can very quickly go back and find so that I don't have round off error. And there you go. I have 8.246, which is exactly the answer we had gotten previously. All right, so now that we found part 1 and part 2, let's continue. It says a square field with side 8 meters has a goat tied to a post in the center by a rope such that the goat can reach all parts of the field up to 4.5 meters from the post. Find the area of a circle with radius 4.5. It's very possible that within these problems, you're going to see that you're going to have these random easy questions buried in between parts of questions that are a little bit more challenging. So this is one example. In part B, part 1, they're asking you to find the area of a circle. Everyone knows how to find the area of the circle. You've been finding area of the circle since you were probably in middle school, okay? So you know how to do this, and you are going to be able to get these points. Just so you know, finding the area of the circle will give you 2 points. So it's one of the things that you cannot give up on any question just because from the very beginning you look at it and it looks hard. Here, this is a standalone question. The area of a circle is simply pi r squared. If you forget, this is in the formula packet. This has to do with topic 3, geometry and trigonometry. So sure enough, right here, you see the area of a circle is equal to pi r squared, just in case you forget. So now we're going to substitute area is equal to pi times 4.5 squared. This is going to go in your calculator. You're going to use the actual pi button from the calculator times 4.5 squared. When do you not use the pi button and you use the approximation of 3.14? Only if they tell you to. If they tell you to use 3.14 for pi, then you're going to go ahead and substitute pi for 3.14. Otherwise, you're going to use the entire pi value from the calculator. Another thing they can do is tell you to leave your answer in terms of pi, which means in this case, I would have just multiplied 4.5 times itself, and I would have written 20.25 pi as my answer. But when they don't tell you anything, then that means that you can possibly go ahead and round. So here the answer is 63.6. And then you want to round to 3 significant figures. So here, don't forget your units. You're going to get an answer of 63.6 square meters. That is 2 points. And you would have been able to get that even though you may not really understand what the rest of the problem is about. All right, so now it says find the area of the field that can be reached by the goat. So what is happening with this goat? This goat is going to come out this way because of the fact that it's 4.5 to make this circle. I know this is a pretty lousy circle. Let me try this again. I think you get the idea. The whole point is that the goat is going to come out, okay, a little bit. Now, when my students took this test, I remember that they were so perplexed as to how to get this answer. There were some of them that they just basically wrote down the 8 because they didn't know what else to do. What they didn't realize is the fact that this question is connected to the question that they ended up just solving at the beginning of the problem. So it says, find the area of the field that can be reached by the goat. So the goat basically is allowed to form this entire circle around this field, when what you want to do is to be able to only include the parts of this field and take out the parts where it's outside of the field. So how do you do that? You want to find the area of the entire circle, and then you want to subtract these 4 parts that basically are outside of the field that we previously, in the first part of the question, were able to find out. If you remember, they asked us to find this, and these questions are connected. And this is the part where a lot of students had a very hard time connecting these 2 parts together. We just found that answer. If you remember, it was 1.39 square meters when we did all of that work. Here, that is going to be the area of this little shaded part right here. So right now, when you're trying to figure out the area of the field that can be reached by the goat, you're supposed to find the area of the entire circle, and you're going to subtract the area of those 4 shaded segments. And yes, this was one of the hardest problems that year that the students had because they could not connect the 2 pieces together. So here, the area of the circle, remember that you already found it from part 1. It's 63.6. You already found the area of that shaded segment from the previous part, 4 times 1.39. It's actually a very simple question because you already figured this out in pieces prior to this part of the question. But again, it's the connecting of the pieces that gave a lot of the students a really hard time. So here the answer is 58.04. And again, we should be avoiding round off error. So let's go ahead and take the time to find the exact amount in the calculator. Minus 4 times, here it goes, 1.39. Press enter. So the answer is 58.0556, which is approximately 58.1. And again, this is area, so square meters. And that's going to be your final answer. Where do you get your points here? Remember I told you that for part 1, you got 2 points or 2 marks just for finding the area of the circle. And then this second part is worth 3 marks. And the way you get those 3 marks is 1, understanding that you're supposed to multiply the 4 times 1.39, subtracting the 4 segments from the area of the circle, and then finally for your correct answer. Okay, so in the last part of the problem, it says let V be the volume of grass eaten by the goat in cubic meters and T the length of time in hours that the goat has been in the field. The goat eats grass at a rate of dv dt equals 0.3 t e to the negative t. Okay, so that already looks really hard, right? Find the value of t at which the goat is eating grass at the greatest rate. One of the things that you can do in this case is that you can use the calculator to graph this. So when we go to the calculator, remember that you're going to go to y equals and you're going to enter any variable as x in the calculator. And also remember that e in this case, it's not a variable, it's Euler's number. It's like pi. You know how pi is an irrational number? E is also an irrational number. It is basically the natural base. So it's about 2.71 approximately. Let's go ahead and go to the calculator. You would enter 0.3 x times, and it's e. So you want to find that natural base to the negative x power. When you go to graph, a lot of times, especially if you're not familiar with the type of graph, zoom fit is going to help you to actually see a good picture of what this graph looks like. Usually it does work pretty well. Sometimes it doesn't, but when you don't really know a lot of the math by hand, I would say that this is kind of like the best approach that you can take. And so in order for us to find the greatest rate, we want to find the maximum. So we're going to go second trace and we're going to go to maximum. When you do that, you have to give a calculator a bound. So I'm going to go all the way to the left, press enter, and then just kind of press it all the way to the right. Notice you can kind of see how it's moving along. And I'm just going to get as far as possible to the end. So I'm going to press enter. The calculator is always going to ask you to guess. I mean, their guess is always as good as yours. So just press enter again. And now it says maximum. So the maximum here is going to be when x is equal to 1.000006. So that means when x is approximately equal to 1. So in the context of the question, it says that t is the length of time in hours. Then find the value. I would do a rough sketch to kind of show what it is because you use the calculator. And then I would say at t equals 1 hour. And this is going to be pretty much your answer for this problem. You can be a little bit more specific to what it looks like on the graphing calculator. You can zoom out a little bit as well. And so then you can come up with your sketch. And so you can see by GDC that you were able to figure out the maximum, and the answer is 1 hour.